Do you have items in your wardrobe that you regret buying? Because two of our scriptwriters certainly do. As another installment in our Things I Regret Buying series, I'd like to introduce you to Jack and Eb, two of our team members who work behind the scenes in various capacities for the Gentleman's Gazette. But as you can see, they're going to be in front of the camera today. And Jack, what is it that you'll be discussing?
Well, today we'll be discussing the sartorial mistakes that we've made and how we've got our wardrobes back on track.
Very good. Well, in that case, I'm going to leave the rest of the video to the two of them.
But before telling you about items in our wardrobes that we regret, we'd like to open by telling you a bit about ourselves.
My name's Jack. I've been working with the Gentleman's Gazette since 2020, and I live in England, as you can probably tell from the accent. Like Preston, I'm a big comic book fan, and I think classic style comes from a love of the Batman animated TV series, where, of course, a lot of the characters are very well dressed.
I think that proved to be an entree for a lot of our viewers based on some of the comments we get.
Right.
My name is Eb, and I joined the Gentleman's Gazette at the same time that Jack did. My interests are primarily in writing, so doing things like scripts, article refurbishments, as well as doing the occasional product description. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and my classic style interest was derived primarily from my late grandmother. She bought me my first suit, and she was also responsible for introducing me to Italy, a country whose style has certainly heavily influenced my own.
So, as Eb said, he writes a lot of the scripts for the Gentleman's Gazette. I started doing the same thing when I joined at the same time as Eb. And my role's changed to involve a lot of the social media, as well as reviewing videos for the channel before they get published.
So now that everyone has a better idea of who we are, let's delve into some of our mistakes. Jack, what do you think would be the first one that you made and the first item that you regret buying?
So the first item that I regret buying is a black overcoat. Very boring, very standard, but it was one of the first things that I added to my wardrobe.
I certainly think as an Englishman it would be something you'd get a lot of use out of, so I'm a little surprised that it's not something you're able to make work, basically.
I understand why you think that. It's one of those things that I think English gentlemen in the Edwardian era probably would have got a lot of use out of this coat, but from my point of view in the 21st century, it just doesn't go with any of the more colourful clothes that I enjoy wearing.
I think that's such a serious consideration when purchasing an overcoat, and it's such a balancing act because on the one hand you need something that will not clash with your ensemble, but on the other hand, of course, you need something that will also harmonize and really help those things pop and look their best and not be a sort of drab smock covering up what you're wearing.
Exactly true, and that's why as time has passed since that purchase, I've really enjoyed slowly collecting an overcoat collection with more interesting or versatile colours. For instance, the green one, which you'll likely see me wearing today.
I think that's a wonderful example of taking advantage of the weather where you live. Of course, being from the deep south, I don't have many opportunities to wear very many overcoats, so I'm forced to rely on a much more neutral palette. I'm glad that you're in a situation where you're able to have fun with that and really add a lot of vibrancy and unique colors.
Indeed, indeed. So what about you? What do you regret buying?
Continuing with the opposite of unique colors and following the mantra here that black is by far the most overrated color in menswear, I foolishly made the decision that what I needed were some black dress socks.
Oh, what sort of over-the-calf dress socks like we sell in Fort Belvedere or the mid-calf?
Yes, so, honestly, they're perfectly reasonable black socks. My thinking was I have a very dandy-inspired aesthetic, influenced primarily from the American South as well as Italian style. And my hope was to build out my collection with some additional socks. Surely I could find some opportunity to wear black. So I followed a lot of the same style guides that we employ for what makes a quality sock: natural materials, over-the-calf construction. The problem was I got way too many of them. You see, when I went online, I discovered that by buying in bulk, I could get a dozen black day dress socks for the same price as the 2 or 3 that I actually wanted. The result is I now have a horrendous little pile of black dress socks that take up an entire corner of my sock drawer. And as morose as it sounds, I'm almost praying for people to die so I'll have a funeral that I can attend and actually wear these socks for.
So in this case, more is not better.
No, more is most assuredly not better. I think the issue that I made was I fell for only considering the financial consideration of this purchase. I wasn't thinking about the spatial needs in my wardrobe. I wasn't thinking about the reality of my wearing them. Honestly, I wasn't thinking, and I assumed, after all...
But less is more than just think how much more and more will be.
So how did you end up remedying that mistake?
So the only thing that I could do was just to get rid of the socks. At the end of the day, I just didn't have use for them, and I just had to let them go. Honestly, for anyone attempting to learn from these mistakes, which is obviously what we hope all of you will be able to do, I would really question whether or not I needed black socks at all. The fact of the matter is these were very explicitly day socks, so they were relatively thick and matte, so I couldn't even utilize them as evening socks like the evening socks that we make at Fort Belvedere. And the simple fact of the matter was a navy sock, a dark charcoal sock, something like that would serve an extremely similar function and be considerably more versatile. So in retrospect, the best option would have either been to just buy the one or two that I originally wanted or not buy any black day socks at all.
So next up for me in terms of things that I regret buying would be a set of Samsonite suitcases. So these suitcases were vintage, so they had a great look to them, but they were extremely heavy.
Yeah, luggage is such a great example of something where form and function are both important, but sometimes function is a bit more important, especially if you're hauling these things through airports and how strict they've gotten about weight limits and things like that. At the end of the day, if what you're hauling is the leather of your suitcase, that's that much less clothing you're able to take with you wherever you're going.
Exactly, and for clothes horses like us, and I'm sure you as well, the ability to take almost nothing extra in your suitcase defeats the point of having a suitcase.
But I'm sure that sort of in keeping with those gorgeous old steamer trunks and things like that that we see, I'm sure that it looked beautiful. What was the leather like?
So the suitcases themselves, they must have been around 1960s in terms of when they were designed. They were that sort of super sleek jet setter style suitcase in a tan leather. They had a nice patina and some really useful internal compartments, but for the most part, as I say, it was the weight that just turned me off. The fact that there's no wheels as well, so it's not even like the weight's distributed like that. So what I've learned from that mistake is to invest in the everyday suitcase that most people have. I have one or two Globetrotter suitcases at home, a vintage model and a more modern one. And the more modern one is actually an attaché case. So if you guys have seen the video about attaché cases, that's one that I actually put together for Raphael because I'm a big fan of an attaché case.
So I can't imagine any kind of luggage, especially on a large trip that isn't wheeled nowadays. Are you at least able to use your vintage pieces on day trips and things like that?
Exactly. The attaché case is actually really useful for an overnight trip. The ability to wear one suit for the 2 days and change up the shirt, the tie and the pocket square, for instance, that is a wonderful feature. And it's got a removable folder portion in the lid, so I can stow a laptop or a tablet or something like that in the back and be able to take everything that I need with me on an overnight haul.
Speaking of travel, my next item is something that has come up from the trips that my wife and I like to take basically all around. Anytime I'd visit a historic site that had clothing for sale, I wanted to pick it up. The problem was most of the clothing available were things that I simply don't wear, T-shirts. So the results are I now have a collection of T-shirts from historic sites, battlefields, beautiful homes that my wife and I visited that are just sitting in my chest of drawers being unworn.
So the T-shirts must have a lot of sentimental value for you because you've picked them up on your travels with your wife?
Yes, exactly. And it was a desire to have something that would be a memento, something that I could wear, and every time I wear it, oh, I remember this wonderful trip that I had. And also I had good intentions. You know, I wanted to support these places that we went to and that we enjoyed, and what better way than buying something and providing some free advertising. Of course, when you don't wear t-shirts very often, they're basically just advertising to each other inside my chest of drawers. And I can never relive those beautiful memories by looking at the shirt if I never look at the shirt.
Right. As you guys can probably imagine, we're not really t-shirt wearers too often.
Yeah, that's very true. So the resolution to this particular issue was to instead focus on lapel pins, other things that these places that I can buy, and honestly that if I wanted to sort of assist the place where I was visiting, to thank them for a wonderful trip, just leave a donation or something like that. Don't necessarily have to buy something from them every time.
For sure, there's only so many erasers that you can get from a museum, right?
Yes, very, very true. That being said, as I go through my collection and cull it down, most of which I will donate, but I'll hang on to a few of my more favorite designs, so on those rare occasions when I am in a t-shirt, I can remember those great trips.
Wonderful. I've forgotten what my next item is. Up next for me is a mistake that I think a lot of us have probably made. It's the slim fit trouser. So around 2010, when I started really getting into style in a very big and meaningful way, the high street was the best way to get into purchasing suits a lot.
A lot of times those issues with fit, especially going for a really trim fit, is something that happens earlier in one's menswear journey, since of course you're sort of following whatever the trends are. That's what you're seeing, that's the fashion at the time.
Being limited financially to what was available means that, of course, the fit of the trouser wasn't 100%. Now, even today, bespoke isn't always an option for even clothes enthusiasts like us. So the high street does still have its uses, as we discuss in this video.
I also find it interesting that slim fit wasn't a good option for you. I mean, you're obviously a very svelte young man, and slim fit has its uses. Slim fit has its places if it complements your build. So what were the issues that you found with this particular pair of trousers?
Well, the issue that I had was that that cut looked good on my physique, as you say, Eb, but the problem was I wasn't able to wear the quality over-the-cuff socks that I wanted to. The trousers would just cling to the socks, and at the moment that I stood up, it looked like I was wearing an impromptu pair of +4s.
I think that's a great example of sort of unintended consequences and the necessity of really considering all aspects of your outfit. You can have something that looks great on you. I often have a very different situation in which a jacket that I have unbuttoned will look really great with my shoulders, but I've got a bit of a belly, so if I try to button it, it gets all disjointed. So really having that holistic approach to how the entire garment looks on your entire body, I think that's a great lesson to learn. I'm sorry you had to learn it by squeezing yourself into some trousers, though.
Not at all. It's one of those things that the trousers looked good when I was stood up, and that's how a lot of these trousers, and indeed jackets, are designed. They're meant to look good on a mannequin or in a shop situation. However, what I've learned, much like yourself, with the fact that we're all different proportions and wonderfully asymmetric, is that an average width of a hem, for me, works best in the 7 to 8 inch range. That's where I'm able to get a really comfortable fit through the leg without it being too tight or too wide.
My next item also particularly has to do with size and essentially getting ahead of myself. Literally. I have a very large head, size 8, which is often larger than most manufacturers make. So when I found myself in a position of wanting to finish off my white tie ensemble, of course I wanted to find a top hat for myself. The issue was my options were extremely limited. I finally located one online, and I was so excited to see that size 8 available that I didn't stop and think about what I was actually buying. I was so excited, I purchased it immediately, waited eagerly for it to arrive, took it out of the box, only to find that I had purchased what appeared to look like a cheap reproduction of a Victorian Christmas caroler's top hat.
Oh no.
Ludicrous bell-shaped design like I'd escaped from a Dickens novel or something like that. Entirely incongruous with the white tie ensemble that I had wanted it for, and not even something that I could pretend was appropriate for formal evening wear, as it was clearly supposed to be a day hat, and a very antiquated day hat at that.
So less elegant top hat and more Willy Wonka's day closet.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know why they cast Tim Chalamet. They should get me to do that role, because I certainly have the hat for it.
Right.
And I think this really taught me the fact that when looking for something and getting lost in something that you're somewhat sensitive about, in my case, I am somewhat sensitive about the fact that I have a larger head, I felt like, oh, thank goodness, here's something that can serve my needs, and I'll take anything. But the fact of the matter is, and trust me, from how this hat looked, it was better for me not to have a top hat with my white tie ensemble than to have this hat with my ensemble.
So how did you go about remedying this issue?
In typical Gentleman's Gazette fashion, I went with the experts. I contacted a local haberdasher, explained my exact situation, my sizing needs, my price needs, as well as what I wanted the hat for, in this case, formal evening attire, and he was able to help get me in touch with an excellent product that I'm really happy with. I've had the pleasure to wear it attending the opera on several occasions, and also I wore it when my wife and I got married for our wedding reception.
Oh, wonderful.
An article that has a lot of really great memories that, unlike all those T-shirts, I actually get the chance to wear.
Excellent. So it sounds like that top hat was something that you saw and you pounced on. Was there a bargain element to it as well?
No, it was relatively inexpensive comparatively, but my biggest issue was that I knew that I couldn't afford bespoke, and I was just so desperate for anything that would fit. Normally in this situation, we would of course recommend trying to go vintage, but if the only thing harder than finding a size 8 modern retail hat is finding a size 8 vintage hat.
Quite. So the reason that I ask is because my last item for today is an item that I thought was going to be an excellent bargain, but turned out just being a headache.
I know that when I jump on things that are bargains, it's often because I think I'm getting a really quality material for a lower price. I'm guessing this is something like cashmere or leather or something like that?
Right. So it was a pair of Peccary leather gloves. Having watched the Gentleman's Gazette videos around Peccary leather and how unique and interesting and expensive of a material it can be.
Truly the king of glove leathers.
Absolutely. Seeing a pair for around £100 on Etsy was an astounding concept to me, that I could get something that was this premium material in a style that I really liked that would be right for me. The issue that I had was they were made to a very standard glove size. So I tend to run around 7.5 in glove size, which you can find out how to find your glove size with this video. But for me, it was a case of these gloves just looked like massive welder's gloves on my hands, which didn't help because the color that I've chose was this really nice sort of chalk, sort of ivory color, which I thought would be really classic and really unique, but I've never worn them because the fit is just so bad.
That component of construction and styling to a certain degree, that is often where manufacturers have to cut corners a little bit to keep those prices down. You have an expensive material, and in an effort to reduce that cost, you ignore things like getting that skiving or that layering so that they actually look nice and not chunky. I completely agree that for fine leather day gloves, that bulkiness is almost the worst thing they could possibly have on them.
Exactly. It's one of those things that these gloves could be tailored to fit my hands because they're just so big that you could easily restitch where the thumb is and slim it down. But at that point, you're then spending almost the same amount of money, or if not more, on trying to make the best out of a bad situation. So the remedy for me in this case genuinely was just to slow down and try to purchase gloves that fit me and are still that same high quality level. It should come as no surprise that I own several pairs of Fort Belvedere gloves at this point.
I think that's a wonderful example of building a sort of aspirational wardrobe, that you start at what you can afford, what you can handle, but that's still what looks good, and then build your way up. Obviously, no one should be expected to start with a rich man's wardrobe. Instead, focusing on what looks good for you at the price point that makes sense for you. Again, I'm sorry that you had to waste a little bit of money to learn that lesson, but it sounds like it was a great investment in your future style.
Exactly. It's something that I learned a lot from that mistake, and the first pair of Fort Belvedere gloves that I invested in was this pair of grey lamb nappa. Very fine dress gloves, but very versatile. They're a pair that has been with me since 2017 now. I love bringing them out when the weather takes a turn, and as you can see, they've just gained this wonderful patina, and because of the colour, I think it's been far easier for me to accept that they're going to darken around the fingertips and really become the pair of gloves that I love coming back to the most.
It really sounds like you made an investment in something that has such a wonderful central place in your wardrobe. And of course, having something with really great cost per wear takes a lot of the sting out of that first initial outlay of cash.
For sure. It's also a really useful purchase for me. So I run cold, and I actually have relatively poor circulation, which means that my hands get cold quite quickly, to a point where a good pair of gloves is an essential part of my wardrobe. It's useful that they're stylish as well, but the practical element is also very much up there for me. So it was kind of a firing on all cylinders when I made the decision to spend that little bit more on getting something that I've obviously worn a lot more.
An investment in comfort is always an investment well made.
Quite. Hopefully by sharing the items that we've regretted buying over the years, it's allowed you to think more critically about your wardrobe.
As well as letting you know that even professional menswear writers can make mistakes when it comes to our clothing. On that note, we'd love to hear about any mistakes that you've made and items that you regret. Let us know in the comments.
And if you're interested in learning what the rest of the Gentleman's Gazette team has regretted purchasing over the years, you can check out their videos here.
But now, let's run down some things that we definitely don't regret getting. Jack, I'll let you start.
So in today's outfit, I'm wearing a jacket, which is part of a suit from Suit Supply. I don't wear the trousers with it too much because I like the look of the jacket as an odd jacket. So practicing the spezzato technique, I'm pairing it with a pair of trousers from another suit, this one from Benson & Clegg. The dark charcoal pairs so well with other elements of my outfit, such as the grey tone patina shoes, which are from Gaziano & Girling. I've got a pair of odd shoelaces in them to add a little bit more interest. Otherwise, my shirt is a simple white shirt from Proper Cloth in a nice heavy twill. It's got a nice spread collar, which works well with my navy tie, which has got an equally interesting rib. This one is a silk tie from Como, which I picked up when I went to Pitti Uomo earlier this year. Underneath the jacket is a pair of braces or suspenders. They're in a similar grey-blue tone, which works so nicely with the tie. The pocket square, socks and boutonniere in my outfit today are all from Fort Belvedere. The pocket square works with the blue tones in the rest of my outfit and accessories, and the socks are a brown and khaki that works very nicely to bridge the gap. Other accessories include my signet ring, and this is in a gold tone which matches a couple of trinket charms that I got from Italy as well. And on my wrist I have my Cartier tank, which was a gift for my 30th birthday. Today's fragrance is from the Roberto Ugolini collection. This one is Kitten Heel. What's really nice about this is the unisex quality. It is actually quite a playful scent, so it's got light notes that pair quite nicely, and I get a lot of compliments on the pleasant nature of it.
Today's outfit captures a lot of components of my personal style that I really like and like to show off. We'll start with the sport coat, which is from Pini Parma in cream, and creams and whites are colors that I wear all the time. I have tried to ground the outfit with a pair of gray slacks. My shoes are from Bruno Magli. They are brown with a slight black patina. My white shirt is made by Aposta and features a pinhole collar. My necktie is in a shade of yellow that I particularly enjoy, and the addition of the red and blue detailing makes it much more versatile, especially for a relatively bold base color. My remaining accessories all come from Fort Belvedere. To complement my necktie, I'm wearing a pocket square from Fort Belvedere. It is yellow and features a beautiful Egyptian Art Deco motif. I have inserted into the pinhole collar our yellow gold hexagonal collar bar, and I'm also wearing a yellow and orange boutonniere. My socks help to bridge the tonal transition from my trousers to my shoes. They have a very interesting quatrefoil diamond motif. They are from Miller Brothers, which is a haberdasher in Atlanta that I really enjoy visiting. Finally, I am also wearing, as I always do, my yellow gold wedding band. My fragrance today is from Roberto Ugolini, the Derby fragrance. I love its plush, decadent notes, which I think really emphasize the style that I'm going for in today's ensemble.